So, you know, we are committed in this coalition to seeking a dual victory, both for economic and environmental reasons. You know, we are now entering the Port of Elizabeth, and like ports in LA and Long Beach, these ports work in tandem with each other. They're in two separate cities, but they really work as if they're one large port complex. And so when I say it's the third largest, it's, you know, LA and Long Beach are 1 and 2, but that's really one port. So we're really second in the country in terms of goods that are coming in. You see all the container boxes that are coming in. If you follow the, you know, sort of the supply chain of the global goods movement industry, you see the production happening in a lot of the developing world, going through ports in China, India, all over the world, coming into ports like LA and New York, being moved on ships that are basically burning bunker fuel. When they get to our ports, they burn some of the dirtiest fuel known to man, which bunker fuel is basically tar. They're not allowed to burn it in the ports of California because California stepped ahead and said you can't burn that stuff within 200 miles of our coast. And now recently, the Lisa Jackson has proposed a new rule that would go before the International Maritime Organization, so that no port in the U.S. or Canada would accept this type of fuel. There would have to be cleaner burning fuel. But right now, until 2017, until that law gets passed internationally, these ships, when they dock here, they're pumping out really nasty fumes, and they found, the EPA, when they did their study to justify the new rules, found that more than 17,000 people a year die because of the pollution just from the ships that are docked here. And the pollution from these ships is found as far away as Kansas. So that's just from the ships. Now, a lot of the pollution that you're going to see here, you have a lot of heavy cranes. You see, if you look on the right, you see many of the cranes, the hostlers, all of the equipment that moves the container boxes on this side of the port are diesel equipment. And all that diesel fuel is entering the atmosphere. On the left, you see the rail lines. About 20% of the cargo goes out of these ports on rail. And that also has diesel impacts, although less than trucks overall, it still has a diesel impact. You know, people always say, oh, more rail would be great. You know, let's put more of this cargo on rail, but unfortunately, the full capacity that rail can handle is about 25%. And that's because of the bridges, the low clearance of bridges throughout New England and other parts of the country that cannot accept double-stacked cargo on rail lines. So there's a limited capacity to what rail can do. So goods are always going to somehow find their way on trucks out to distribution centers. Usually on a typical day here at the port, when ships are docked here, you have trucks, diesel trucks, idling for hours in lines to get into terminals. And it might be a holiday today.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because of election day.
Yeah, they do have a lot of holidays. So usually on a typical day, you'll see lines of trucks at these terminal entrances to try to get in and get their cargo. And it's very inefficient. You'll see trucks here idling for hours at a time, waiting to come into the ports. When they come in to get their box, their box might be the bottom of a stack of 20, and so they have to wait until they unload everything and get their box, and then their box goes out to a distribution center. Usually they go to large warehouses off of the New Jersey Turnpike in the middle of the state, and then from that distribution center eventually to the final destination like Target or Walmart.
And one of the things to think about is, again, because the drivers are paid by the load, there's no incentive for the system to operate in a more efficient manner. If the drivers were employees, there would be a very different incentive to create a more efficient system. But also, because the drivers are so disenfranchised here, are there any electrification stations where they can plug in?
I was going to ask.
I mean, there are no stations where they can plug in, so that if they're here on a summer day and it's 90 degrees and they've got to wait for 3 hours, they've got to run their trucks because otherwise they're going to cook. Same thing on the other side of the equation in the winter. So there's just, again, it's sort of, because the drivers have no leverage, there's a substantially greater amount of pollution that gets put onto them and onto the community.